Here we are on episode 79 of the Trash Talk Business Podcast, your weekly rendition of all things junk removal. We're talking demolition, deconstruction, moving, hauling, you name it in the junk removal sphere, in the greater waste industry. My boy Casey and I are here to cover it. Casey, what are we going to be talking about today?
Hey, say we got a guest, like we most always do. This guest is Jon Nelson. Where are you from, man?
I'm from Menasha, Wisconsin.
Oh shit, another cheesehead. Speaking of cheeseheads,
oh my God! Go ahead and say it.
Detroit called.
I don't want to hear it.
And they still have blood all over their boots from stomping that ass.
No.
Golly, I had to put it in there.
No, it's fair. And you know what? I was watching. I was waiting for Zeke to fucking run all over the Cowboys.
Nope.
It did not happen. So there you go. You know, last week you were down and I was up, and you know what? As the football turns, you know what? Prime time's not our thing.
Drama story.
let us play noon games the rest of the year. We haven't had a consistent noon game schedule in 20 years. Right? Ever since they started doing like back in the day when Favre was there, it's like we got a Monday Night Football game. Like that was pretty dope. Like that was cool, right? And then every other game was at noon. Maybe a 3:25 game of the week if we were playing like the Niners or the Cowboys. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, like 12 games a year are noon. The last 20 years, I go to one or two Packer games a year. I haven't been to a day game as an adult because they're always Thursday night, Sunday night, Monday night. This year I'm going to a nooner game against the Rams because it's two teams that aren't that relevant. I mean, then again, the Jets are playing in prime time with fucking, what's his face? Zach Wilson. You know, they almost pulled it off. He almost pulled it off last night against KC. Anyhow, all right, that's the football talk. We have gotten people complain about our talking of the football, so we will refrain from the talking of the football potentially for now. For those of you watching and not only listening, you'll see that my background has changed. I have these lovely curtains. I am staying here in lovely Las Vegas, right here on the Strip, as I record season 2 of the Masters of Home Service podcast, brought to us by Jobber. Shout out Jobber. Yes, they do pay me when you sign up. Now that we got that out of the way, let's talk to Jon Nelson and see what the hell he has to say. Jon, why are you on the podcast today? What's going on?
Well, I've been listening to you guys for a long time. I think I found your podcast originally. I think you were episode number 8 or 9. I was just kind of in the daily grind, 9 to 5, or in my case, it was a 6 to 4. Just listening to other people's ideas and experiences and trying to decide what I wanted to do on my own. I came across your guys' podcast for one reason or another, whether it be the words I was searching. And just after listening, I decided to go out and try doing my own thing. And here we are.
So how long did you do the side hustle with the full-time gig?
Just a month.
Oh shit. Okay.
Yeah.
So you took a leap of faith. So how long now have you been doing the thing full time?
I got my LLC started. It was a couple days into August, and I had my LLC the same day I quit my job.
This year August or last year August?
This year August.
Okay, so you listened for a year. So you were like, because that's the 3 phases. You were in the idea phase then for at least a year, right? Is that fair to say? Like.
Probably
you're listening
longer,
to episode 8.
Yeah. That.
Okay. Well, and I really want to highlight that because you were right there. There's somebody right now listening to this podcast that's where you were a year ago, where you're like, I don't know what I want to do. It's there. Okay. So we're recording this October 2nd. So really, you've been in business 2 months for all intents and purposes.
Yep.
What the hell do you know? What have you learned? And I mean that in the nicest way possible. Like. Cool, like because what do you know 2 months in? Because here's the deal. I got 14 years. I guarantee you there's gonna be something you tell me, and I'm like, fuck, 14 years, I didn't figure that shit out. And the person that's the person that was in your shoes a year ago that was like, hey, I have a job I hate, right? Actually, episode 8, that'd have been around the time that Tracy quit his job. That's one of my favorite. Like, that's when I knew our podcast was legit. When some guy we never met legit was like, "Yeah, dude, I'm quitting my job next week because of you guys." I'm like, that is awesome.
Yeah.
Right? Because success or fail, he made the choice. The economy's like, even though the economy sucks right now, the job market is still strong. I'll say you can go suck for 6 months and go get yourself a job the next day. Like, that ain't a problem, right? It's not like, chances are you can go back to your old company because they probably haven't replaced you yet.
Yeah.
So, all right.
Well, they got rid of about half of their shop, so it's actually
It was inevitable.
It's a little bit more complicated than the nutshell I put it in. Essentially, I was working for a company in Appleton, building machines, automated manufacturing machines. Things got slow, and they let some people go. So I was like, well, I've been kind of wanting to do my own thing for a while, but I wasn't really ready to take that leap. And I was happy with the job that I had. I really liked it and the people I worked with, but once I got laid off, it was like, I'm not ready to take that leap yet. So I tried working elsewhere. I got in there and I was like, I'm less happy here than I was before. And so that's kind of why I'm here. But yeah, I mean, everybody's hiring. So
what Tracy is getting started in the drunk mobile industry was that June 27th of what episode 9, dude, episode 9.
Is that the one?
Episode 9. So like 10 minutes after you started listening, some guy was like, "Fuck it, I've heard enough." Like less than 10 episodes, and he's like, "Yeah, fuck it, we're good, whatever."
Awesome.
I'm jumping in, and we checked in 6 months later, and it was like, dude, this is where I shit the bed, and this is also awesome at the same time, and that is entrepreneurship, right? I like what you said here, though. I talk about this in my book, Words Fucking Matter. Retrain your brain to use language that serves you. Shameless plug. I will plug it every episode because I feel strongly about it, obviously. When things happen near you, right? You got laid off. There's 2 ways of looking at it. Did it happen to you with a victim mindset, or did it happen for you, a victor mindset?
Yep.
Right? And now it became a present. It showed you what was possible. I for years, I will take this to my grave, and I'll tell the same story. I got laid off 2 days before Christmas in 2008, and I blamed my father's company for years. It was his company I got laid off from, and then I realized that it was an opportunity because in 2009, that fall or that winter, right after I started scrapping, and that's what's turned into what I have now. I was never going to take over my dad's company or be a carpenter full time, and so I would have stuck around longer had I not got laid off. So the fact that you've already reshaped it and be like, hey, yeah, you know what? I got laid off, and right, you dabbled. You're like, I'm gonna go try another gig, right? And again, I love saying, hey, put some meat on the bone before you start trimming the fat. You realize quick, fast, and hurry that wasn't meat, that was fat. You were putting on the bone, and you got out. You weren't like, hey, let me have safety and security for a couple of years. Let me jump into this thing that's on my mind.
Don't get me wrong. It's still scary. I mean, there's been a couple of times I'm like, maybe I should, at least do like DoorDash or something that I don't really owe anything to anybody for, just to get that extra income coming in.
And you know what? But here's the deal. You went from an idea to a side hustle to a full-time gig. Nothing says you can't go back to having a side hustle that feeds your full-time gig. Right? Yeah. You're still moving the needle, right? Yeah, also, yeah. I have thought about doing Uber or DoorDash personally, and I thought about it because I already have a wrap vehicle. I'm like, man, if I did that, that's more eyeballs on my vehicle.
Yeah.
Also, you don't know who you're going to meet, right? You could be doing Uber or DoorDash, and you can meet realtors, you can meet property managers, you can meet real estate attorneys or estate attorneys. Like, the people you want to meet are also the people that are buying those services.
Yeah.
And you can be very honest with them. Like, yeah, I quit my full-time gig. I'm chasing my dream, and I'm doing this because at the end of the day, I still got a mortgage. So real quick, let's talk about your family situation ever so briefly. Because as I'm here in Vegas shooting these episodes of the Masters of Home Service podcast, one of the things that came up is like, yeah, when you're 19, 20, with no wife, no kids, it's easy to work 90 hours a week and not give a fuck. You got the energy, you can eat shit food, nothing's slowing you down, right? Like, once you got a mortgage and a spouse and some kids, and you can't go on 3 hours of sleep and some monsters. Like, life is different. So what is what is your family situation? Because I guarantee you there's other people listening right now that are in a similar situation that need to see that, hey, other people can do it.
Yeah, we're a family of 4. It's me, my girlfriend, and our 2 kids. We got 2 little boys. So
Okay. So and how old are your kids?
3 and 1.
All right, so they're fresh.
Yep.
Hell, Casey's
Yeah.
got, what do you got, 6 and 2, Casey?
5 and 1, 5 and 18
5.
months. So yeah,
Yeah.
5, 1.5.
There you go.
Well, let's say this, John, my wife and I had a huge conversation not too long ago about this very subject, right? Like, yeah, it's still scary. There's times where you have badass banging months, and there's times it's like, shit, we may need to look at, you know, worst case scenario for next month kind of thing. Once you get that taste of freedom, it's real hard to not want to just go full in. And that's one thing I did, man. Like, I did not want to go back to not having all the answers. So instead, what I did was I looked at the value of what I was doing for my family. What value was it bringing for my family? What value was it bringing to my life? And I looked at it and I was like, who cares if I have one other thing that is more stable that feeds the hard cost of my life, right? Um, I still have another business, but I also now work with a nonprofit and I get a monthly paycheck. Um, and how I looked at that was I wouldn't have ever had that opportunity if not for all the struggle I went through in the beginning when I first started my very first business, and it was in junk removal. So at first, it looked like I was taking steps back. I was like, oh, look what I've accomplished because I was looking so short-ended. I wasn't looking in the long term. And now I'm in a position to where I can get in front of, vice presidents, CEOs of major corporations, not just for this nonprofit I'm working with, but also for my self-storage, investment company. I mean, those opportunities are there, right? So with you, you mentioned Uber. It's so funny you say that, Andy, because dude, I thought the same thing. I was like, but I have a badass truck and I'm not trying to put miles on a V8 like that. That would not be efficient. But I even thought about getting a smaller car. And I was like, just same thing you said. The people you meet, right? That'd be fine. Or what if I worked with my wife? So I started working with my wife and I realized both of us working with her business, it just quadrupled her business. So, dude, in the beginning, it is a dog eat dog world, but it's also really a good opportunity to get real creative. Um, I mean, hell, if you have Thursday, Friday that's not booked with any jobs, and you can go pick up $200 on a Thursday for driving to the airport, why not go do it? But when you're doing it, tell those people about what you're doing, right? Share the word. Who knows? They may be going on a business trip and then coming back and saying, you know what? That guy I met, he has this company that cleans out whatever. So, don't ever cut yourself short. It's never a step back. I'm realizing that now.
No, I had a conversation this weekend, and I started saying, I feel like we're taking a step back, and it wasn't a step back. It's a right. It might not be on the path we thought we were on. It might feel like a step back. And I talk about this in my book. Is every time you hit a new low, it's still higher than your last low, because you learned some shit from the last time.
Yeah.
And that's as simple as it is. So you might say, hey, yeah, like I don't want to do that. Like, so if you had a choice between DoorDash and Uber, I'd say, well, Uber's the better of the two because you have an opportunity to meet people, right? And your car won't smell like fried chicken, right? So it's like you can still make. I delivered pizzas for years. I delivered pizzas back in the day when that was a shitty job. Now it's like bougie, right? To be DoorDash. I don't know. Maybe not bougie is the right word. More generally accepted, I think, is whatever.
Yeah.
Speaking of DoorDash, on a side note, I had tacos del Gordo last night, which unofficial sponsor, since Casey's hat has America on it, which we always sponsor America. I think kind of my 19
We are
years
sponsored
of
by
service.
America.
We are sponsored by America. And anyways, Tacos del Gordo, the best tacos in Vegas, on the strip, north end of the strip, north of the Wynn, east in the other side of the street of what do you call it? Resorts World. Anyways,
Yeah.
one of the people I was here doing the podcast with last night, she's like, "Oh, I was gonna just DoorDash something." I was like, "No, DoorDash shit. We're gonna walk 3 minutes and get the best tacos." Mildly shocked that I ordered the beef tongue tacos which I think are delicious. Shout out beef tongue tacos. I had the steak, the beef tongue, and the El Pastor, and the beef tongue was the best. Throwing that out there. They did not have beef brain tacos. They were out, which I've never had beef brain tacos. So maybe I'll go back there tonight. We'll see. Just randomly talk about things in Vegas. Also, Cleaver. So Cleaver, that's the place I had steak last time. I gotta find a steak tonight. I went to a steak joint last night. It was like it was good. Yeah, the steak joint I went to last night was $1.80 a steak for like your entry level, not great steak. I got 5 tacos. Let's just call a spade a spade. I did not get a steak. I walked my happy ass over and got some tacos. That's I'm on a taco budget. And also the tacos are delicious. I don't need to sit in a fancy ass steakhouse where you're just paying for the ambiance table of one. I ain't trying to impress anybody. I'm trying to eat. I flew in. I was hungry. I was like, yeah, I want a fatty ass steak until I didn't want a fatty ass steak. Right there, you go. Right, I didn't fail. I didn't take a step back. I took a step in the right direction. Tacos are always the right direction.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so let's go back to my earlier question. You've been in it 3 months, 2 of them full time for all intents and purposes. What have you learned along the way?
How to get creative with estimates. So on these Facebook groups, you always see, and I'm guilty of it too, people will say, how much should I charge for X, Y, and Z, right? They post a couple pictures and they get some input. And even if somebody's pricing or, disposal fees or whatever are the same as what they are in your area, there's always going to be differences. Everybody values their time differently. So when I go to give somebody an estimate, and maybe this will come back and bite me in the ass long term, but I always try to tell them worst case scenario, right? So I don't tell them exactly how big my trailer is. I just let them know, like, hey, I have a big trailer. It fits a lot of stuff, and if we're in their garage or whatever, and they're like, this whole corner has to go, and I'll put my arms out and I'll go, all this stuff will fit in my trailer and then some. And, my full price is, and I'll give them my full load price. And I'll say, that's worst case scenario. Obviously, if you take up less room, which, I'm sure you will, then, I'll adjust the price accordingly going by my price sheet. And so far it's been working out pretty good, because people hear, full load price and they're expecting to pay that much. Well, when you show up, and you probably still could charge them a full load price just because of, you pile it higher or whatever. They're expecting to pay a price. When you come back with a lower one, they're just like, that it's almost like appreciative of that. Mm-hmm. And like I said, maybe I might be screwing myself in the long run here, but building that relationship with them, I guess under promising, over delivering is.
Yeah. So what is?
I look at it.
I don't think you're screwing yourself.
No, I think you're actually doing it. Yeah, correct. If you had the right, the goal is your estimates are dead on every time, right? So that is the goal, right? That's this magical fairyland fantasy land that we want to live in, where it's exactly what we think it is every time, and customers never add shit or subtraction. That ain't the reality of junk removal. Right? That's operational liability of our business. So if you're going to err to the side of, right, overpromise, underproduce, or overproduce, underpromise, you're better off with the latter. Mm-hmm. So real quick, what is the size of your trailer? First off, how many cubic yards?
It's about 6.5 cubic yards.
Okay. And what do you charge for that?
$325.
Okay. So we're in a similar market. We're both Wisconsin. He's about an hour and a half. Actually, my uncle has worked, right? It's junk removal is in my blood. Great grandfather owned a scrap yard. My uncle has been a recycling driver for the city of Menasha for 30 years. So growing up, he's about to retire as a union. He did concrete before that. He built bridges in Atlanta with my dad, and then came back and he was a mason, and he got a job. So he's the highest guy. There's like 5 drivers for the entire city of Menasha for their trash and recycle routes. And he's been a recycling driver for 30 years. He's about to retire. So anyway, going to it, yeah. So you're at, right, the industry standard is 16 cubic yards for all. Mm-hmm. Right, yes, Junk King's at 18. whatever, and then like 800 got junks at like 14.3, whatever. So let's just say 16. So you're less than a half a trailer. I would say your market half a trailer is probably 379, 375 ish for a half trailer. So you're a little below that, and you're at a trailer 6.25 cubic yards, like that's price wise where it needs to be. How many price points do you have? Do you have a single half full, or
I have 4 price points. So
okay,
it goes, the minimum is 100, that goes to a quarter load. The
Yep.
next increment is 200, that goes to half, and then it goes
Yep.
275, 3/4, 325 full. So the more they use, the more
Yeah.
savings they have.
Correct, because you're factoring in your fixed cost. And
Yeah,
then what is the size of your operation right now? Is it you? Do you
just
have a
me.
helper or your wife,
Just me.
wife come out and help?
No,
Okay.
it's just me. So far, I've only had to get help on one job.
Okay.
And I just reached out in a local Facebook group, and I found somebody else who does the same thing just up in Green Bay, and they were slow, so they came down and helped me.
So how did that work? Did you do a rev share on that, or do you pay them hourly plus
Hour,
disposal? Did they bring their equipment,
hourly,
or do they only their labor?
just the labor.
Oh, okay. All right. So yeah, so that works. See, and this is where, especially smaller markets, put in perspective, the Fox Valley is about 25,000,
Uh,
150,
I think it's closer to a quarter.
quarter million.
Fox Valley runs from Oshkosh up to
I suppose.
Kaukauna
Okay.
here. So
I'm
yeah,
Googling it. I never think about Oshkosh being. So Appleton is 75.
yep.
They consider
Oshkosh is
Fox
100, I think.
Valley. There you go, 236. They consider large. Oh, never mind. Never mind. That's Fox Valley Park District in Chicago, outside of Chicago. All right, I gotta type in.
Oshkosh
Oh, you know
says
what?
66, Green Bay 107,
Yeah, but you're correct. And
Appleton.
yeah, let's call it
So
Fox
I don't
Cities.
think Green Bay is really considered
No,
Fox
it's
Valley.
too
I might
far.
be wrong, but I do advertise that I service as far north as Green Bay. So um,
Yeah, it's a bunch of small areas. All right, let's call it 250. Okay, and then Green Bay is probably right another 200, 250 for
100,
metropolitan.
100 something.
Oh, it's only 100. I thought there was 90 in Green Bay alone. No,
Yeah, Green Bay I think is like 110.
it is the smallest, obviously. Well, see, it's 325, 320. They call the Green Bay Metro is 320.
Okay.
All right, so 320 to 550, 570 between the two markets. And they're 20 minutes in between, tip to tip, basically, from the outer edge to each, right? So really, it's about 30, 35 from, if you said Appleton proper to downtown proper Green Bay.
Yeah.
And that's good because we have a lot of listeners that, they're range in size, right? I'm outside of Milwaukee, which is a top 50 city. Casey's out of Dallas, which is maybe top 10 city in the country, right? That makes a difference. And then we have some people that are like, hey, there's 40,000 people in my county. And how do I get to right? And like, how do I do that? And I'm like, win the small town of 20,000 people, the one town, win it, win the one town. So, and that's good. Then this is where I am all about collaboration between junk removal companies, especially when you're first starting out, because you don't know what you don't know, and it's better to be collaborative. And I like what you did there. I will say, right, that's why I asked the question of, was it labor only, or did you also have them bring their tools and equipment? Because I've also seen that before where people are like, oh, I had them come out and they did a load and I did a load. And it's like, okay, well, how did that work? Because you had to get the customer, you took the liability, right? Now, if they came labor only, cool. You pay them 20, $25 an hour, bang it out, feel good. And being about a half hour away from you or so, it's close where it's convenient and not so close where there's going to be super competitive. And who knows, right? Maybe you return the favor to him, or really vice versa. He gives you the opportunity to go work for him on a slow day, and you can learn some shit along the way. I used to pick up this crackhead named Tyrone outside the scrapyard, like once a week. Yeah, I paid
Tyrone.
I paid Tyrone one time for a full day's of work, $20 cash, bucket of chicken, large cheese and pepperoni pizza, and 4 pairs of pants. It's a good ass day.
In the beginning, it's you get in where you fit, man.
Yeah, man. This other guy, actually his name's Casey. Kind of his name also named Tyrone. His real name was Tyrone, but he only went by Casey. So whenever the bill collectors would call, they'd call looking for Tyrone, and his son's name was Casey. So you knew if you called the house phone, this is how old I am. If you wanted to get a hold of Casey, you had to, or if you want to get a hold of Tyrone, you had to ask for Casey. Otherwise, because that way they knew you were legit, you know. And so I've known this guy 15 years before I realized his name was Tyrone. Anyhow, that guy Casey, he used to pick up a truck bed for $100, and he would back into people's driveways. This is where I worked for my father's company, and we would build a chute coming out of like a bathroom. So we'd build a chute with either garbage cans or tarps and plywood, you know, and he'd back right underneath it, and we would load up his truck with nothing but mortar and tile and plaster. Man, he'd be riding on the damn rims. He'd be back an hour later, completely unloaded, $100 a load, no questions asked. Right? He always
We had
had
a guy
doors
like
in the
that for
back.
sheetrock.
Oh yeah, exactly.
He
You
had
know
an
what?
old
Like,
GMC that was separating from the cab, and he had
yep.
ratchet straps on the sides
Oh
of
yeah,
the bed. I'm not even kidding, man.
dude, that tailgate. Yeah, I would say those trucks those tailgates never open because those
No.
tailgates are strapped down because if they open, they're coming off.
Yeah.
So yeah, like I cut my teeth doing that shit. And then on the same token, like I had a trailer, so whenever he had to borrow my trailer, I let him borrow my trailer because I had a trailer, right? Like that, humble beginnings, right? You started with a 6.5, like my trailer. I don't even know the cubic yardage on it. It was 10 foot by 6 foot by 4 foot. I remember I built up 4 foot sides on it afterwards, or 6 foot sides on it when we first got started in the franchise because it wasn't big enough. So yeah, 10 by 6 by 4, 240 divided by 27. There you go, 8.8. So 9 cubic yards was that trailer. But I also stack it high and let it fly. Like I always had doors, total Sanford and Son. You put the doors on the side, you get the flying V. Oh my God, mattresses, doors. Oh yeah, you throw a mattress on top, 2 ratchet straps down the hatch.
Good to go.
So we have 2 dump trucks now. They're both 24 cubic yards. And last Saturday, 2 Saturdays ago, I was working the yard, and we had we throw off furniture in our yard. Because it doesn't fit in our dumpsters, and then once we have a full load, we'll top it. We'll top off our loads with furniture. And I started topping, and I had 4 safes, 5 couches, like 7 recliners. And I'm like, if I can get rid of half of this, I'll be happy. I started topping it off, and I'm using a forklift to do this. And at the end, I'm like, dude, it's all fucking going, every last piece. And I use all the hillbilly logic and math I ever used. And my guys come back, and they're not used to seeing me loading trucks, at the end of the day, but it's Saturday and I was the manager on duty. And they're like, "Where'd you learn that shit?" I'm like, "Man, I've been doing this for a minute." And when I started doing this, I didn't have a forklift. I didn't have anybody else. I didn't have a 24 cubic yard dump trailer. Like, you fucking teasing my ass. I used to just do this shit myself. I actually did a job by myself the other day. That same day, I did a job, a dishwasher and a stove. And either that's the heaviest stove they make, or I'm fat and out of shape, or somewhere in between. Because I couldn't put the stove on the back of the pickup truck. I never ran pickup trucks. I always had my van. I love my van because the deck is like 18 inches lower than a pickup truck, right? It just
So the tall guys.
Yeah.
So here's a trick, Andy.
Oh,
So
I'll hear
us
your
tall
trick.
guys, we have
I'll tell you what I did.
we have an advantage, right? So what I used to do, if it was a refrigerator or a stove or something that was bulky and big, and I was by myself and I had to get it up on a bed, I would squat down next to it. I'd have it tilted, squat down next to it, and have back of it going to be on my thighs. Then I'd pull it on my thighs, and as I stood up, it would go just enough to just pop right on the bed.
Dude, I'm even lazier than that. There was a dishwasher and a stove, so I took the dishwasher, laid it on its side right next to the tailgate, put the stove on top of the dishwasher, right? So I only had to lift it 2 foot, and then I reset my hands, and but I had the back to it, and then I could just tip it. It caught the edge, and then I pushed it in. Then it was a Saturday morning. The phone rang, and it was a realtor. They're like, "Hey, I got 2-item pickup. Can you do it today?" I'm like, "Yes." Of course, I said yes because that's my answer to everything is yes. And I called my guys in the field. They were on a 3.5 4 trailer job, and I'm like, "Hey, y'all gonna be done by noon?" This was at like 9:30. They're like, "Oh no, we should be good." And then I checked back in at like 11. I was like, "Hey, y'all gonna be done by noon?" He's like, "Oh hell no." I'm like, "All right, cool." So I guess it's on me now, right? Because I'm all about chasing that. So I chased down, picked it up. I was so happy. And then we took the appliances. We took 32 appliances the other day to our appliance guy. So he don't take the dishwashers because he doesn't repurpose those or refurbish them. But that stove, heavy as shit. I kept all the components right. I just put them. That's the thing. When I take apart stoves, I put everything. Typically, I put everything into the oven, and then I either use that, right? Like when you're sitting behind a stove or in front of it, a lot of times you just open the door, and that's how you get your leverage. And once I got it in there, I always just tape the door shut, because that way all the components stay in there. You don't lose them. You're not farting around. Especially even if you scrap it, that way you're not picking up parts and pieces if you don't have to. So the little tips of the trade. Blue tape and duct tape. Those are your favorite two tapes, right? If it's temporary, it's blue tape. If it's semi-permanent, it's duct tape. Just duct tape those two doors, and you will not fart around. Because whenever you pull a door off of a stove, for example, because it has those rear slots, or if you yank it too hard and pull it off, it ain't going back on. Like it's a pain in the ass. You got to line it up perfect. Spring's got to be right. I ain't trying to do all that. So there you go. Some tips and tricks. All right.
So do you have a job count right now, John? Do you know how many jobs you've done so far? Official?
Yeah, right here.
Pull them out. Bring them out.
Yep.
Officially, since starting my LLC, I am at 9.
Okay.
One of those took me a whole week.
I remember seeing that on your Facebook. Yeah, it was a big ass garage.
Yeah, it was
clean out, tear down, right?
What would it be? 260 yards.
Oh wow, nice.
Yeah, on a 6. Did you get dumpsters for that, or did you haul those?
It was 7 30-yard dumpsters and then 8 of my trailers.
A lot of trips.
That's what I'm saying. 260 yards on 6 yard. That's a lot of fun. What is that? 44? Would that be 44 trips? Now I'm gonna have to do the math.
It'd be too many.
240 divided by 6.2, 38.7. If it had been by 6, it'd have been 40 even. 240. You said 260.
It was actually
260. Here, 43 and a third. I was close. 43 and a third. I said 44. Yeah. So technically 44. That's how you hillbilly math, folks. Right? Shooting from the hip. 260 divided by 6 is 43 and a third. And if it's 6.2, it's down to 42 loads. Save 2 loads by those at 0.2 yards. Yeah, you'd still be on that job. You'd be busy today on that job, not talking to us had you done it that way.
I fully expected to be there for 2 weeks by myself if I were to get any help. So
if we did that, 260 divided by 16. So a standard job, it was 16 and a quarter trailers. Call it 16 trailers. So you smashed out 16 trailers by yourself in 5 days.
No,
or is that?
I had help. So
you had help.
It would be 3 of the days I was by myself. So it was. Yeah, 3 of the days I was by myself. The other 2 days I had help.
Got it.
And then what's that?
What'd you charge for that job?
That was a little over $19,000.
So that's significantly more than. So even at 16 trailers, you got $1,100 a trailer, was there deconstruction also involved in that?
There was, there was a gigantic chicken coop and a bunch of fencing around it and stuff that had to get taken down.
So that's got to be about half your revenue then for your entire business. Is that fair to say?
Probably 70%. Yeah.
Okay. Just being generous at half.
Yeah.
I'm done this once or twice. Okay. And that's the challenge though, right? Like sometimes you get that very, very early success. Like I can tell you, you might get one job that size in your first 1,000 jobs.
Yeah.
Shit you not. Right. The fact you got in your first 10. Oh yeah. Well, I mean, let's not put it on luck. You did what was necessary. I remember you posted on you posted on a Facebook group, or maybe you shared it with me personally, right? And you were like, "Hey, man, how do I do this shit?" Right? You did what was necessary, and the math proves it because you got the job. You did what was necessary for someone to give you the opportunity. You bid it, and you won it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like,
well, I get what you're saying, but it was like all the stones, fell into the right place at the right time.
Dude, that's literally how your first and second you're gonna go, man.
Everything from me posting on those groups and having the right people see it, and
that's fine.
It was even marketing. A job that exchanged hands too. It wasn't somebody's personal residence. It was an investor that that bought it had it under contract, and he decided he didn't want it. And so he let me know. He was like, hey, I know I was going to have you come look at this big job, but he's like, we're wiping our hands clean, blah, blah, blah. I was like, okay, man, no worries. Like in the back of my head, I was like, I don't know how I was going to do it anyways, but, and then, yeah, I was up north at my dad's house in Rhinelander, and it was like 9:30 at night, and I get a text message, and it was that guy. He's like, hey, man, we ended up reassigning it or selling it or however it worked, I don't know, to somebody else that we know. He's like, but he's still going to need stuff cleaned out too. Do you care if I give him your information? I was like, no, dude, go ahead.
No, that's
Thanks for asking. But yeah, and then he, 20 minutes later, I get a couple, pixelated videos of some guy walking around on a cell phone, just like, all this shit needs to go. He's like, when can you come give me an estimate? I was like, I'm in Rhinelander now. I'll be back Monday. I think I met with him on Tuesday because that's when he closed on the property. Yeah, and I just
so the last 3 years of my business, I had a minimum of one job over 6 figures each year. The trick, right, is not planning it. You can't. It's hard to do. It's hard to say I can count on getting this type of job, right?
Yeah.
But the cool thing is what you learn is how to identify those opportunities, right? So even though you did this one $19,000 job, and you're like, well, it's kind of a fluke, blah blah blah. It's not true, because you now know what it looks like, and now you can identify those opportunities that pop up again in the future.
Yeah.
And just because you swing and you may miss doesn't mean you didn't swing, right? You still swung. The one thing I tell people, even in their first year, I'm very adamant about this. Send out estimates that you honestly are not prepared to do. Don't get the estimate to get the job. Get the estimate to get the experience. If I said, hey, John, I have a hotel, I need it cleaned out in a week, and there's 77 rooms, and you're like, holy shit, it's just me. There's no way I can do that. Don't tell me that. Do the estimate. Blow me out of the water. It doesn't matter. You're not doing it to get the job. You're doing it to get the experience and to see that whole process. Because then, let's say you do that, you come back and you're like, hey, it's going to cost me $150,000. Even if I'm like, holy shit, I'm still going to say, all right, this is what I need next from you. Boom, boom, boom. That's when you start realizing, oh, I don't have this. Can't get this. I'm not qualified for the job. The fact that you went ahead and went through the steps of the estimate, now you're going to understand a lot more, right?
Yeah.
Another thing that happens is, and Andy's done this too, he learned it with the VA project. You're going to get these jobs, and it's going to kick your ass. And then you're going to be faced with this, I guess you could say it's an issue of, do I really want that again? Yeah, it's a lot of money. Holy shit. Like, I'm limping after that one, But it's still a learning process, right? Because if it does come up, it's kind of like the McDonald's job. If that happens again, now we kind of know if we really want to get it, let's make it well worth our time. And now we're going to do things different here, here, and here, right? It's still going to hurt a little bit, but if we do get it, it'll be well worth the time.
Yeah, it's one of those, you're already in entrepreneurship, give her hell.
Yeah.
And there's, if you say, hey, I want to do, $40,000 this year in commercial work, well, there's 19 of it,
Yeah.
That's it.
Go out and get more.
But plan for the big number, and then on the year, and then track it, right, every 12 months. So I saw you got a folder there. Is everything hand jammed and chicken scratched right now?
Yeah. I tried doing the whole QuickBooks thing.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm just getting old or what it is, but it was hard for me to figure out a way that made sense to me to separate expenses per job. So I know
you never do expenses per job. I've never done expenses per job.
But the reason why I bring that up is because when I did that $19,000 job, so I did it based on his budget. So I went through, I did told him how much stuff I thought there was and how many hours I would think I'd have into it. And I gave him a worst case scenario. So he had that money for worst case scenario set aside. So every day, because I bid it per cubic yard plus hourly, because it was a 5-acre property.
Yeah.
So I'm going to do
here. You like cost plus?
Here's the deal. I'm going to do the math for you. That's what I'm going to do right now. I'm going to do the math, because now it's interesting. I'll give you this as a simple tool, right? I'm gonna do the math that you're talking, right as you speak, and show you how to do it on if you right for larger projects. I absolutely agree that you should figure out your per project. Let me know when you can see my screen, and we'll go there.
Okay.
Because you can see it now.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so his budget was 19,000. You said.
It was like 19,000, 15, 10.
Okay, it's fine. I can do that. All right. 19, 15, 10. What do you mean 19, 15, 10?
Zero.
Those,
yeah. Yeah.
10 cents? You got it done at 10 cents?
Well, that's what the payout was, right? The IRS is going to want to know.
That's interesting. Well, yeah. All right. So that was what it ended up being. Okay. So what did you factor? Let's talk about what you factored, and I'll start punching numbers here.
So it was 1850 per 30-yard dumpster.
Okay.
And
so you
then
charged 1850, and that was labor, everything on that.
No, that's just for the cost of the dumpster disposal fees.
$1,850 per dumpster?
That's what I charged him.
Got it. But you're labor loading that though, or not? You just totally marked up the dumpsters?
Yep. I marked up the dumpsters, and then I gave him a pretty low labor rate just because the dumpsters were marked up.
Okay. So what was the okay? So you did all right. That's interesting. So how many dumpsters total? You said 16. 7. Okay. All right. And then what did you have for your labor rate?
I don't know if I have it on this sheet or if it's upstairs. I think labor. I think it's on my other notebook upstairs.
Okay.
So labor was low, and I learned that this time. I'm going to be adjusting that going forward. It was $80 per hour for just me, and then depending on the amount of help I had, it went from $80 an hour to $110 to $140 or $150.
Okay. Yeah, I mean those labor rates are about market rate.
Yeah, so it came out to, I think, 52 hours at an average of $89 an hour.
Okay.
Once I divided it all through.
Okay, that gets us to 17.5.
And then I had $1,600 in paint and hazmat fees for $1,300. Yeah, $1,300 in hazmat fees.
So you hauled the hazmat.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then it was $575 for a skid steer.
Okay.
And I think those were the main big expenses on there.
Okay, so you had a budget of 19, whatever. So this I come up with 18.8, right?
Yeah, that's pretty much right. Oh yeah, because there was tires I had to get rid of too, and that was like $190.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. So we'll call this So this is hazmat. So what did you do with the hazmat? You hauled that yourself?
Yeah, I brought it up to Brown County to their recycling center.
And real quick, what was the 575?
What was the hazmat? What exactly was the hazmat?
It was just oil-based paints and stuff. Oil-based paint, antifreeze. Yeah, I had a couple jugs of antifreeze, but yeah.
Okay. Actually, yeah, I'm just going to cut. Okay. Simplify this stuff.
I did learn going forward though that I'm not gonna do, unless somebody's got like a little tiny can of latex paint, I'm wiping my hands clean because the amount of work that goes into scheduling to get rid of something like that.
Yeah, the other challenge is you could get yourself really hemmed up with the DOT.
Yep.
Because taking, buying Windex to the store and bringing it home is one thing. Getting paid to take Windex to a hazardous waste site, that's a fucking bag of shit you don't want to be fucking eating.
Yep.
All right, so let's talk about now. Okay, so this is how we made our money. So let's talk about what were your costs. What was your cost per dumpster?
You want me to go here? You want me to give you dumpster by dumpster, or do you want me to give you?
You have a total price, or you got it because it varies.
I got it. Well, I got it broke down on here, dumpster by dumpster.
What's the total cost on dumpsters, or don't you have that?
I could add it for you.
Here, give me the numbers. I got Excel spreadsheet.
First dumpster 552.
Okay.
Next one 624.
Okay.
Next one 696.
Okay.
569.
Okay.
490.
Okay.
Then the last two, the invoice was lumped together, and it was 908 for two.
Okay.
So you could do 450 or however you want.
There we go. Here, we'll do some math here. Okay, so 38, 39, right? 7 total dumpsters.
Mm-hmm.
So you averaged, right, per dumpster, 549, 550 per. What was there a base plus? Was it like 490 plus tonnage after 3 tons or something per dumpster? Is that how they?
It was. They gave me a discounted rate. It was 320 and then 58 a ton.
Okay, that makes sense. Got it. So now what we'll even do here is I can really get fucking real stupid. 454. So now we're going to do equals this. Nope, hold on. So what I'm doing now is the math to figure out what was your tons per dumpster, so you can see really how effective you can be moving forward, right? And you'll see your cost savings when you realize what it is per dumpster. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So you can figure out, right, how much different it was. Oh, fucking bullshit! I forgot to hit the goddamn. So you all are watching me do fucking. Even the people at home. For the people at home, they're watching. This is very riveting. For the people that are listening, what I'm doing is what I'm now factoring in how much he paid per ton. Hold on, this minus that, and of course my math ain't fucking mathing. No, this is I see. Put the wrong fucking formulas in here. There we go. All right. So basically, he averaged between 2.3 ton up to 6.4 tons per dumpster. 30 yarders on these?
Yep.
Okay. So now we can also see what your cost is per ton when you're not being, when you're filling them versus not. So on the low end, his price per ton, when he only was putting 2.3 tons in the dumpster, it was costing him $196 per ton. However, when he filled up his one with 6.5 tons, it only cost him $107 per ton. So he almost split his price in half by packing the shit out of that dumpster. Yeah. Now it also can be, it also 100% has to now do with, the type of material put it in there.
Yeah.
But this is where not all dumpsters
I know exactly what those 2 light ones were. I know exactly what was in there too.
What was in those ones?
Like foam styroboard.
There you go. So now right. So it loads faster, right?
Yeah.
If you're dumping, nuts and bolts and little pieces of wood, it's going to take forever in a day. If you're putting foam styroboard, right? So it's like, so this is a labor versus a tonnage cost, right? Okay, so your all-in dumpster cost was, we figured out $38.39. That was your overall dumpster cost. What other costs? How much do you have a labor number? What it cost you on that job?
I do. I know that's upstairs. With the scrap metal that I got out of that job, more than double paid for the
Okay.
labor.
Okay.
And
then what was your cost on the hazmat?
$12.95.
Okay, so that was a wash.
Yeah.
Okay. So essentially it was a billable expense. Okay. And then same with the skid steer. Was that a wash, $575, and the tires at $190?
Yep.
Okay.
The hazmat, the skid steer, the tires, I didn't upcharge anything on that.
Got it. So it was a wash. Okay.
Yep.
So your total expenses, right? Because we're taking out labor entirely because you washed that. You wash that entirely with scrap. Good on you, right? So your total expenses then, and I do add up even the billable expenses because it still gives us our overall number. What am I doing here? Auto sum. Enter. Okay. So your job, you got 19. You said 19. We're gonna call it 19,000.
This is 19,015.
1915. Okay.
Yeah.
I came out with 19,448, and that's just because
Yeah.
math was.
That's just because I'm going spitballing on the labor.
Yeah.
That's where we got screwed up.
Math ain't fucking mathin'.
No.
That's where we're at. Actually, here we do it. So now I'm gonna get twitchy and figure out how to math. Math ain't mathin'. Let's say 86 hours. What does that get us to? No, not enough. 80 hours, 82.
Try 81.
There you go. Now, actually, 81 would be literally right where we need to be. 81 hours. There we go. Now we're at fine. We're close enough. All right. Danger close. All right. So $19,000 job less our $5,899 in expenses. You made $13,133 on the job, right? That's we'll call it gross profit because at this point you haven't paid yourself.
You're about, from what I got here, you're about $100 off, so you're pretty close.
Pretty fucking close, right? Yep. There we go. Okay, how many hours did you now put in?
That was included with the labor rate, or what do you mean?
No, you didn't pay yourself as the owner.
Okay,
yourself as the labor. What did you pay how many hours did you put in?
I put in, I think it was 45.
Okay. And did you pay yourself out of the scrap, theoretically?
No.
Okay, so there you go. So you didn't pay yourself, right? Which is fine. What are you worth per hour to your business right now?
It's kind of a loaded question.
Well, I can help you. I mean, I'll get you dialed in. What did you make at your last job? What is your take home?
26.
Okay, so you made $26 an hour, right?
Yep.
That was your billable rate. So my hillbilly math says you're worth 3 times that much.
Okay.
Take labor times 3. Okay, right? So your billable rate then is $78 an hour. So you saying $80 an hour, you're fucking right where you need to be. So yeah, I'd say you are right. That's your billable rate versus what your pay rate is, what you can pay yourself, right? Because what you pay yourself is 1/3 of that. So we're cooking with peanut oil here, right? Mm-hmm. So now if I factor in the $26 an hour, right, times you said 44 total hours you were there, which that's
it was 44, 45, yeah.
Okay, I'll make it 45. I always like, right? So your labor for that week theoretically was you would have paid yourself out $1,177, right? So I take that off of what the profit from the job was to get a more accurate reflection. Because
wouldn't your pay, wouldn't you want that to be the 78 instead of the 26?
No, because that's your billable rate versus what you pay yourself.
Okay, I got you. Yep.
Because now this is, hey, if I would have paid somebody else to do this, can I go pay someone $26 an hour to do exactly what you did? Right? Because you got to constantly figure out what happens when I'm not in the business. What is the business worth if I'm not there physically doing it?
Yeah.
So there's 2 things that'll kill a business before conception, I think. One thing is completely separating yourself from the nuts and bolts in the very beginning. And the other thing is being so involved that you don't account for replacing yourself after the first 6 to 12 months. And
Yep.
what happens is you get to that point where, I'm not saying you have this mentality, but a lot of people do. They're like, oh, well, I mean, technically, I'm free or whatever.
You're
And what
not free.
happens is they get to a point they need to hire someone. They can't afford to hire someone because they're used to doing shit themselves and they don't put their value in there first.
Yeah.
Yep.
So far, the way I've been paying myself, just because everything has been so irregular, is
Yeah.
I've been splitting everything 30, 30, 40. So whatever the business makes after expenses for a job, and that's kind of why I was trying to figure out what my expenses were as I was doing it. So I'll put 30% in the business checking.
Yep.
40%, or I'm sorry, other way around. 30% in the business savings for when taxes come due at the end of the year. 40% in business checking, and then the other 30% to myself.
Copy. So there's two pieces of advice. One, have you read Profit First yet?
I'm sorry?
Have you read Profit First yet?
No.
Get Profit First. You're already kind of starting to do it. Actually, three pieces of advice. One, Profit First. You're already starting to do it. It'll dial in those numbers a little bit better, and also put it in perspective. Why you're doing what you're doing is good, and how to do it better, like the next level, right? So savings is good. Assigning what that savings is better, right? So it's not, well, it's like taxes or whatever. It's taxes. It is profit. It is long-term growth. It is owner's equity. It's all these things, right? So first bit of advice, profit first. Second piece of advice, pay yourself a salary. Do not pay on a per job basis, because then you're going to have spikes and valleys in your personal income and right. So just pay yourself a salary that says, yep, I'm going to pay myself $40,000 a year.
Yep. And that's the plan too.
Yeah. Okay. So there you go. So pay yourself the 40. So when you have a kick-ass week, you get your $800. When you have a not great week, you make $800.
Yeah.
And if you have a not great week, you can look back and say, did I earn it this week? Right? Because it's coming out either way. Because I need to pay myself, right? I got to put me first. So pay yourself. Third thing.
Well, that's so the whole thing about this, well,
Casey's going to jump in.
Yeah, just because.
My third thing.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I'll come
You
back
froze.
to my third thing.
Go ahead.
Casey. I didn't freeze. I didn't freeze for shit. Third thing, jobber. Get Jobber now.
I did download it. Yeah.
That's it. Like, because you're right. QuickBooks is not a operations tool. Use Jobber. And I can tell you, I talked to this guy, one of our listeners. He's 6 jobs in. I talked to him on Friday. He is 6 jobs in, and he's like, yeah, I'm going to get Jobber now because I want to figure it out while it's only me, so I can figure out how to use it for me versus figuring out once I have employees. Building that infrastructure in place now. In order to get Jobber, you have to have a website, or at least a domain, right? So now it forces you to get a domain. It forces you to get a @not Gmail account, right? Because what's the name of your business, real quick? I don't even know.
JST Junk Removal.
JST. So @jst.com.not.us. You could put a dot anything now because they opened it up a couple of years ago. It used to be .com. You had to pay no. Like I'm camelcrew.us because US was significantly cheaper than .com. I mean, you can be .jun. I don't fucking know. No one types websites anymore. They just click on it. I do want to give a shout out to this guy. Why can't I find it on my calendar? I had a great conversation with him the other day. He's a listener. He hit me up. Somehow it's not. Oh, there it is right here. I couldn't find it. Taylor Goodwin. Good dude. Shout out to him. He's Mesquite, Texas, Dallas, Fort Worth area. Anyways, good ass dude. He's 6 jobs in. So you're how many jobs in? You said 9, 12.
Yeah, somewhere around there.
Okay, you have double the number of jobs as him, and he already got Jobber because he sees the benefit of building in operations today, and he still has a full-time job. He's working and doing this nights and weekends, and he's like, hey, he also, and this goes along with profit first and a lot of ideologies, once you start paying for a tool and you see it coming out, it's going to motivate the shit out of you to utilize the tool to its best possibility, right? They pay me to say it, and they don't have to. I was promoting Jobber for years before they gave me the opportunity to be an ambassador. So there you go. Masters of Home Service podcast, Jobber. I'm actually drinking on my Jobber mug today because part of my get better is drink more water and less coffee. Only 1 cup of coffee today after I was awake for at least 90 minutes. No big deal. Fucking killing it over here. Go ahead, Casey.
So 2 things. Just to piggyback. So Taylor is actually, I spoke to him a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
And, because I know Mesquite very well. I know the area very well. Grew up a little east of there. The one thing that he did that I suggest you do, if you haven't already, get involved with your local chamber. Just do it. At worst, you have 15 to 30 people that will come to a grand opening and share you on social media, right? At best, you have 15 to 30 people or more that are out there just spreading the good word of your business. But so that's one thing he did, and he got in with the chamber, and he called me. He's like, "Dude, it's so freaking awesome. I'm meeting other business owners that are having similar issues or whatever, right? It's a good, strong, I think, network system." But the other thing is, like I was going to say before I interrupted Andy so rudely, is
so true. So
well,
true.
I will say this. So when it comes to Jobber, I peeked at Jobber. I have a client that they got an account, right, and we were sitting down. I was looking through it with them, and you can customize it so much, even at your level, to where it makes sense. There's going to be tools you don't need. You don't have to use them right now, right? I actually used a couple different things when I had house call. I would use things just as notes. It didn't matter, right? I didn't have an inventory, but I'd use it for pertinent information I wanted to be public to everyone who looked at the platform. But it's also a good way to separate operations and backend. Like Andy said, QuickBooks is a great tool. You need it, but you don't need to be an expert at it. What I would suggest, I think Andy has probably done this when he was first started, at least try to learn the basics, man. Learn the basics of it, know how to look through it, and then have an expert quarterly just kind of run you through the books and everything. And then that way you kind of have a good handle on where you could spot check. That way at any point in time, you can open it up and be like, that doesn't look right. I'm not sure what's going on, but something doesn't look right. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then you can call that person and say, hey, something doesn't look right. I'm not really sure what's going on. Can you help me? And then they'll explain it to you like, oh, you know what? You're right. I put here instead of here or whatever. So don't stress too much. You don't need to be an expert in QuickBooks. I still, believe me, there's a lot of shit that scares me. When Andy puts Excel up, I'm like, oh, crap. So,
actually, I said one of our other listeners who uses Jobber, loves Jobber, has QuickBooks integrated, and she sent me their P&L and also where they track their leads from, and I scrubbed the whole thing and was like, yep, this is fucked up, change this, put this over here, whatever. And I basically gave her a 1 hour profit and loss scrub, and I gave her a pro forma for the next 3 years. I said, how much do you want to make? How much do you and your husband want to make? She told me. I'm like, okay, you're here. This is where you need to be next year. This is where you need to be in 2025. Here's where you need to be in 2026. And I was able to do that because when she called me the first time, she's like, hey, I'm looking for advice. And within about 3 minutes of the phone call, I'm like, cool, I'm done talking to you because you're not giving me the data I need to be. I'm not going to spend an hour bullshitting with you, right? When I talked to Taylor the other day, dude's got 6 jobs in. It was a completely different conversation than, hey, I've been doing this for a year and how do we get out of the truck? And so I'm like, I need this data. And then she realized for her, she only was tracking like 1/3 of where she got her leads from up until April of this year. And then from April of this year, she's at like 90%. All because she heard an episode of us saying, hey, you got to track it every time. All that can be stored within Jobber, can be pulled from Jobber. And then when you get to the point where you need to hire a guy like me or an accountant or a business coach or a marketing company, you have all the data. Yeah. The challenge is a lot of people start capturing the data. And it's like, dude, they had 2 or 3 years of data they never captured. And that goes back to what Casey said earlier. Well, what Casey said, big jobs that scare the hell out of you, big jobs that you have no clue how to do. Casey always talks about, he lost his ass on this one job because he bid it. And yet it was the most fruitful job because it was the best lesson learned and also showed him what he was capable of. I remember when I won the big VA job with Casey, I was like, this is where Casey and I are very different. I'm like beyond optimistic that I'll just figure it out. I'm like, I'll figure it out. Where Casey's like, he landed this monster job a couple of years ago. He's like, holy shit, dude. what I'm gonna do. I was like, dude, you'll figure it out. And you're like, yeah, like it's awesome, and yet I'm scared shitless, right? Like it was like this. It was this awesome, and I was like, I was partially jealous. I'm like, dude, he just launched a fucking monster job. I told Casey, I was like, dude, let me fly down and run a fucking excavator for you for a week because I was like, I just want to be part of this job. I want to like, and it didn't work out timing wise. It's like, so part of me was jealous, part of me wanted to be on his team, and yet from the third party, him and I would talk about it like every couple of weeks. I'm like, hey, where are you at with this? And it's like some weeks he was like, dude, we fucking killed it, and other weeks he's like, dude, I need to go get a job and quit this shit. And like, but it's because he took the chance.
Bigger jobs had bigger issues too, you know.
Yes.
Yeah.
John. John, here's a good example, man. That same job he's talking about is like a $300K job.
Yeah.
And I lost over half of my staff in a week during that job. And that job was an hour away from my area of operations for junk removal. So I was like, holy shit. You want to talk about having too much business? There's such a thing because I did. And I was set up for it, right? But I can't change people's minds and hearts if they want to leave and go do something else. It doesn't matter what I have on the line. But I'll tell you what, it was the best thing that ever happened because I learned so much. And now if it comes up again, I can look at it differently and say, you know what? Yeah, I'm going to do this again.
Yeah.
And when you do that, you figure it out. And this is why data is so important. I did a big ass job in end of May, early June. And the job itself, just like I did on this project tracker, the job itself, we fucking killed it. However, to Casey's point, it took so many resources away from our day-to-day jobs that we ended up having an assload of overtime. So it's like I made a bunch of money on this project so I could pay overtime back home. Well, the next time we brought on a big job, we changed the way we did business, right? We leaned in more on temp workers. We allocated only the trucks that we knew we could afford to use. So it's like we had to go out and fail in some aspect. Now we succeeded. We got the job done. We got paid what we were supposed to get paid. We made money on the job, right? So like mission accomplished. As a business, wasn't a great business week because we had high revenue and high expense. So it was like a wash and a lot of headaches. However, we've done like 6 jobs since then, and everyone has gotten better. Had we never taken that job in the first place, we would have never got better. Had we given up, we would only have lost money. We would have paid for the lesson and never actually then applied the knowledge from the lesson learned. And now, like we give ourselves a budget and we give ourselves boundaries. Like we're starting up and running a new division within our company. We've been doing it for a couple months, and the president and I sat down. We're like, hey, we're running this. We have an expiration date, and at that time, then we're going to evaluate it. Because the challenge is when you first start getting into business, you chase everything because you're not sure and you don't even know what parameters to put in place. So even with you now, right, start paying yourself, giving yourself parameters, so that way you work towards your goals versus what you said earlier was, I got lucky. It's like, no, you didn't get lucky. You planned this out and it fell in place. It's more proactive mindset.
Yeah, there's certainly going to be, I mean, starting a business isn't necessarily easy, and I don't think anybody thinks it is, but all of the lessons that I'm learning are things that I didn't even think, to research. Like it was the second estimate that I ever did for somebody. As far as going there, giving them a price when they weren't ready to have it done right then and there. And it's taking down a carport, and it's something that I've been working on since the beginning of August, literally like right away. But it's just a carport that has to come down. So I thought, go to the city or the township, get a permit to tear it down, and Bob's your uncle, and that's it. But I go in there, and even though it's a privately owned apartment complex, it's considered a commercial building. So now your permit just went from $40 to $100. Well, you also have to put a cash bond for $500. Then you got to have the inspector go out there. Well, since it's more than 4 units, you have to have the DNR, or you have to have an asbestos inspector come do asbestos.
So, John, this is where asking for forgiveness instead of for permission is key.
Yeah, I'm learning that, man.
You're in the best position.
Like, I'll
actually, John,
to say I don't know or I didn't know that.
Hold on. John reached out to me about this. No, John hit me up on Facebook Messenger. We're in the same state, and he's like, "Hey, what do I need to do?" I go, "Go to the city." because this isn't
Oh.
like every city's different. Like
Oh man.
I know what I can do in the city of Milwaukee, right? They're a democratic city. You need a fucking
Mhm.
permit to take a piss in the wrong spot, right?
Yeah.
Now I go out to rural areas. I remember I tore down a 80 by 40 foot pole barn with my brother in a weekend. This was years ago. Like we ripped it down with my buddy's truck. I was like, oh, we can fit it in 3 dumpsters. Nope. Turns out I can tell you 80 by 40 foot pole barn, 6 dumpsters, right? And it's not a weekend. It's more than a weekend. And my F-350 Ford van didn't get it done. We needed that and a diesel Chevy 2500, or it was a GMC, the 2500 or 3500, whatever it was. It took both of them yanking on 2 chains or 2 tow ropes at the same time to pull this thing down into place, right? Anyways, fucked up this guy's everything, pulling this thing down. Like took trees down the whole 9 yards. No permit, no lead abatement, no asbestos, no questions asked, right? Because of private residence, right? It just happened to be a pole barn. So, yeah, something like that. Like, I have a degree in business management. They don't teach you that shit. Like, in 4 years, well, 7 years of college for me, 4 years for most people, they teach you, yep, abide by state and local laws. That's what they tell you. It's like, well, shit.
Yeah.
And so even when you asked me about that cardboard, I'm like, I don't know. Like, that was the answer. I don't know. And I don't know because I haven't done that yet in that township for an apartment complex for a carport. And again, to Casey's point, you probably could have torn the mother down and been done with it and never got caught. Probably.
Yeah.
And then also there's but not 100%, right? There is a chance that you lose your house.
Yeah.
Because they tell you to put it, or they tell you to rebuild it with the same wood, right? And you're like, that's
so there's another thing, and there's another thing to remember too, right? So down here we deal with corruption in the trash business. I mean, we do, man. The big businesses that own
hashtag
cities.
Hashtag your boys republic.
Yeah, right. So what you do know is city government doesn't more than likely doesn't work on the weekends. They just don't, which is great. Number 2, if I have a job coming up on the weekend and I can get away with certain things as long as it's done by Sunday night, I'm probably going to get it done. Now, what I'm talking about is dumpsters, right? I can only use a certain company in certain areas. It's ridiculous. But if my budget is this and using the other dumpsters is this, I'm going to try to get this done. And if I can get it done in a day or 2, more than likely, I'm probably going to do it. Now, when I said ask for forgiveness instead of permission, you're in the best position. You're brand new. You can literally get away with and be honest. Like, hey, I didn't know. Like, this is my first go around. Now, I'm not saying go out and do stupid shit. No. But if it's a pole barn, it takes you an hour to 2, or I mean, a carport takes you a couple hours to knock down and get it out of there. Hey, man, it might be worth the, hey, I didn't know. But then again, that's on you. I can't tell you how to do that. I've done some questionable things.
It definitely crossed my mind saying like, I'm sorry, but I did take it as an opportunity to learn not just about the process that's involved with it, but whether or not I want to do something like that again. Is it worth that time and effort and energy? Because like I haven't even started on the job yet, and I probably got 50 hours into it.
Have you? Did you push that cost to the customer at least?
Yes and
that's
no.
What you need.
So
that's imperative going forward.
I'm still at the area where I'm sitting profitable on the job right now, just not as profitable as I would have liked to have been.
Okay.
So
right, no, I get
if
that.
It ends up being a wash. Yeah. I mean, it's still an experience. It's something that had to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, take pictures, put it on Facebook, share it, and get more people interested in you doing that work, because now you have the knowledge to do that work.
Yeah.
So let's go around the horn here. About 90 minutes into it, buck 15. Let's go around the horn here. Start with you, Casey. What are your top takeaways from today's conversation with Mr. Jon Nelson?
Man, top takeaways: don't fear failure, embrace it. Don't, when you've already got the balls to be your own boss, you already have it. You're stepping out into a new venture. You're being an entrepreneur. It's the scariest, craziest, and probably is going to be the most fun time of your life. At least that's how I look at it. So my top takeaway, honestly, don't fear the unknown. I mean, you got this, right? You look at worst case scenario. You said it yourself. You always tell your customers worst case scenario. Okay. Worst case scenario, it doesn't work out. What are you gonna do next? Right? You're already creative. You're gonna do fine. For me personally, I always put my family first, right? And I always made sure no matter what I did, worst case scenario, they would always get taken care of. Whether that be, hey, you know what? I gotta go and Uber for 3 days a week, whatever.
Mhm.
Right? That's worst case scenario. Who gives a shit? But always remember this. When it comes to business, in the very first year, you're gonna wear all the hats, but you have to also understand you need a plan to put those hats on other people. So build them up now while you're fresh. And that way you can be like, hey, look, at 6 months, I'm ready to take this hat off. I'm no longer going to be doing this aspect of the business because I don't have to anymore. Right. So that's my top takeaway, man. Don't fear the unknown.
All right, John, what was your top takeaway today?
Good jobber.
Yeah, there you go.
It's a good takeaway.
Well, I think I do have a plan of how I want this to look, moving forward as far as building it and maybe even paying myself a set wage sooner than anticipated. But I have a lot of stuff I got to figure out yet. So, I mean, clearly I'm only a couple months in, but I need to continue to get the ball rolling as far as consistent work. And then once I have that consistent work in place, start building more of an actual structure on how I'm going to operate and, what type of jobs and what type of customers that I'm going to try and target.
Yeah, you got to put some meat on the bone before you start trimming the fat.
Mm-hmm.
That's the world you're in, right? You got to put meat on the bone and then figure out what you like to do, what you're good at doing, what you make money doing, and then start to triangulate, right? What, and then you got to figure out who will pay me to do that thing. Start triangulating that. So I guess that's my top takeaway, right? For the listeners out there, they got 6 jobs, 12 jobs, 20 jobs. You got to start capturing that data now, right? To John's point, use Jobber and other related tools to capture the data, and that way you can start triangulating what's working. And then to Casey's point, it'll reduce that fear because now you have the knowledge. You've earned that information. You've collected that data. Now use that knowledge to make decisions moving forward and take those chances. And what you'll realize is the fear starts to go away with knowledge.
Yeah.
So
you'll get data-driven results.
Data-driven decisions get you results. I like it. All right. But another great episode. Thank you to Jobber for always doing the thing and supporting us in our endeavors here in the podcast. I'd like to thank my guest, Jon Nelson, co-host Casey Bubba Lawrence. I'm Andy Weins, and this has been another riveting week of the Trash Talk Business Podcast. We're going to see you next week.